Yavapai Broadcasting and the City of Cottonwood proudly present Inside Cottonwood, an inside look at the decisions and issues of the City of Cottonwood. Brought to you by Arizona Smile Designers.
Welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm Diane Jones, your host, and today we have with us Christy Statler from the Arizona State Parks Foundation. Welcome, Christy.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we're going to talk about some really exciting things today because, as you know, with the State Parks Foundation, you know what's been happening to our state parks.
Yes.
And we've been under a severe budget crunch, and state parks has kind of taken the brunt of some of that.
Yes, disproportionately so, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so today, during this half hour, we're going to learn how that all happened and an exciting new initiative that can change all of that.
Yes, it is a very exciting initiative.
So we're starting out to talk about Citizens to Save Arizona's Natural Resources. What kind? This is a new group of people, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. It is a campaign, a group of Arizonans coming together, nonpartisan, broad-based group, coalition coming together to really work to save Arizona's natural resources and our state park system.
All right. So what exactly, as I understand it from reading this information, the time is very short. So let's start by talking about what is an initiative.
A voter initiative is a measure that's brought forward to the people through the ballot process. And what is required is 172,000 signatures, valid Arizona signatures, voters of Arizona who feel that the measure, whatever it encompasses, is worth putting on the statewide ballot to be voted upon, to be approved as a measure that affects the legislature, affects the people of Arizona.
All right. So I know that Representative Karen Fann of District 1 worked her heart and soul out this year with HB, House Bill 2362. And I know that Senator Steve Pierce, who is also the president of the Senate, was very supportive of it. And actually, the entire Senate voted to support this bill, which was going to allow state parks to retain at least the funding that they make in their parks, rather than having those funds swept into the general fund to cover other budget areas that were lacking. So this passed mostly through the House last year. What was that? It was 50?
It was 55-4.
Okay.
It passed through the House. We also, I must mention, the Speaker of the House,
Andy Tobin.
Andy Tobin was extremely supportive as well. All of the representatives of District 1 staunchly supported this measure. House Bill 2362 would have created a state parks revenue fund, which would have been a non-appropriated fund under the Karen Fann bill. That fund would have been populated by Arizona State Parks gate fees, the money that you pay when you get into a state park, gift shop revenues, donations to the park system, and reservation surcharges. It's a surcharge that the state park system, kind of an administrative fee on your reservations at campsites and cabins and Kartchner Caverns tours. That fund, those monies would have been potted together into the State Parks Revenue Fund and protected as a non-appropriated fund. That measure passed hugely successfully through the House, 55-4, and unanimously through the Senate. Yes. But unfortunately, because it was a non-appropriated measure, would not have been appropriated through the legislative process, but would have been directly funded to the State Park Board to identify and utilize, to be utilized for maintenance for capital needs that have really piled up over the years.
And we know that locally through the Douglas Mansion.
Yes.
That was closed for many, many months because it had cracks in the foundation.
Oh my goodness. Well,
and so most of the 31 parks in the state probably are facing the same issues.
One struggle or another. You know, when you defund a park system, I can't refer to it as just a state agency. It is a park system. 31 natural areas, historic properties, and recreation areas, and natural areas. Of course, the Verde River, you know, a critical waterway,
which extends from Clarkdale to Beasley Flat, past Camp Verde, 36
mile linear park. Anyway, we refer to this park system, and when we watch for the last decade, essentially, the defunding of the park system, you find that parks end up on shortened schedules, so public access becomes an issue. We find that we have deferred maintenance issues. You know, when you're not able to take care of a water treatment plant, a sewage system, critical to a recreation park, those things directly affect the ability of the public to go to the park, because when that system fails, when a water system fails at a state park, you got to close the thing down.
Exactly.
When historic buildings like the Douglas Mansion start to experience natural decay, it's an adobe building, for crying out loud, a beautiful historic facility, unique in Arizona.
Absolutely.
And when adobe starts to deteriorate due to leakage, water leakage in different aspects, and you're unable to address that matter right away with funding, then, you know, it's just like not fixing your roof on your house.
Right.
Other things start to deteriorate until you have a massive capital project that's going to cost 10 times what it would have cost if you'd been able to patch the roof when it was just a small leak.
Right.
So these deferred maintenance and issues have now piled up to accrue to a nearly $200 million backlog of maintenance and capital needs in our state park system. And that is purely a result of defunding of the state park system.
Well, from what I was reading in your frequently asked questions, which is available online as I understand it, the website is aznaturalresources.org.
That's correct.
And these frequently asked questions were on that website, so everything we're talking about and more today, because we won't have time to cover it all, can be found factually on the website.
Yes. It really describes this initiative that is designed to sustainably maintain and operate our state park system, but to further do many more things for Arizona's natural and cultural resources. It is the Arizona Natural Resources Protection Act that we're addressing.
It doesn't even talk about state parks, so it actually encompasses way more.
It does.
Because as I understand it, cities and towns will be able to get some funding from this measure.
Precisely.
And I know that, like, through the heritage funds, that we have built parks for our children. We have built a lot of ballparks through those grants that are no longer available now. I know that Tavasi Marsh has got a beautiful walking area because of those grants. I mean, those grants help so many people, and so this initiative is talking about that also.
Well,
Game and Fish. Go ahead and tell us what the initiative does.
The Arizona Natural Resources Protection Act, and I want to get this right, so I'm going to refer to my notes, please forgive me, is an initiative seeking qualification for the November 12 statewide ballot that provides voter protection for the funding of management and protection of our natural resources. This ballot measure ensures that current and future generations are able to enjoy the natural splendor of our parks, the heritage, the phenomenal Arizona history, and outdoor recreation that's provided at our Arizona State Parks and Recreation areas. So that, in a nutshell, is what the Arizona the Arizona Natural Resources Protection Act achieves, but specifically it guarantees that all school children who are part of a school field trip get into state parks for free. What teacher and parent doesn't love that?
Exactly.
You know, we're excited about that because kids getting into parks, making that more feasible for schools and for parents means that kids are learning about Arizona's history and prehistory. You know, Arizona's archaeology is unique in this nation.
Absolutely.
It enables children to learn about wildlife protection. It learns, they're able to learn about natural resources that are here in our state that they're not necessarily exposed to outside of a regular field trip. And what we learn is that school children who visit with a school group often talk about it at home. And then their family goes to the park and experiences the park or the natural resource, the cultural aspect of the park as a family.
That's great.
So that's one aspect of this initiative that everybody's rallying around. Another aspect of this, when a measure like this is approved on the ballot, it falls under the Voter Protection Act. And then the funding that's generated by this act is voter protected from any kind of legislative sweeps or raids on the fund, any kind of diversion of the fund for a purpose other than what the voters approved the measure for. So that's vital. That process protects the funding for our sustainable state park system, maintenance and operation of the park system, as well as voter protecting the Heritage Fund allocation that goes to game and fish, $10 million annually that goes to wildlife protection, natural resource protection through the Arizona Game and Fish Department. We feel like that fund could be at risk, and we wanted to fold it into this act to ensure that those funds are maintained, protected.
And did not voters originally vote in the Heritage?
Well, the Heritage Fund was wildly approved by voters, and I believe it was 1992, the Heritage Alliance.
But it wasn't
formed,
protected.
And the voters approved it, but that was prior to the Voter Protection Act. And as a result, those funds, those are lottery dollars that generate that funding. $10 million was allocated to Arizona State Parks as a grant program to cities and towns for all these uses we're talking about. And then additionally, this $10 million was allocated to the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Well, we watched 3 years ago, I believe it is now, as the Heritage Fund was allocation to Arizona State Parks was actually line itemed out of the statute, and that funding immediately ceased.
Okay, so we need to take a break here for a little commercial, but we'll be back to continue this conversation and find out how voters can help.
Great.
Meet the team at Arizona Smile Designers, offering complete, comprehensive, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. Dr. Vergara and Dr. Lord specialize in dental health, implants, and cosmetic dental procedures. Expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment bring forth the most from your smile. Dr. Ripplinger conveniently comes to Arizona Smile Designers for oral surgery and complicated procedures. Visit Arizona Smile Designers at 350 South Willard in Cottonwood. Insurance and new patients are welcome. Call 634-8610.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Mayor Diane Jones from Cottonwood, and we have today with us Christy Statler from the Arizona State Parks Foundation. We were just talking about an initiative, the Arizona Natural Resources Protection Act, and we had a couple more bullet points that we wanted to talk about what the act will do. So go ahead and continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The revenue that will be generated by this act, once it's approved on the ballot in November, always thinking positively here, guarantees that the first $10 million that's generated by this revenue will go to a grant program. We just talked about how the Heritage Fund was eliminated. That allocation to state parks was eliminated. The first $10 million of this revenue stream will create a new $10 million grant program administered by Arizona State Parks to cities, towns, counties, nonprofit organizations.
Tribes.
Exactly, tribes and all kinds of other organizations who finance watershed protection, natural resource protection, trails, trail maintenance.
Trails are big here.
Oh, they're huge here. I know, I love trails.
And we want more.
Yeah, outdoor recreation.
More trails.
Yes. As well as archaeological protection. And so that's a really critical, $4 million of the first 10 that's collected will be strictly dedicated to cities and towns and counties in Arizona.
So in other words, what was taken away will be
restored. Yes, ma'am.
So that's excellent.
Correct. And the last aspect of this Arizona Natural Resources Protection Act is really the funding source. And that is a $14 voluntary vehicle registration donation process. This is an opt-out program. On your, should this measure, when it's passed in November, what you would see on your vehicle registration invoice every year is this additional $14 that's added to the bill, but you have the option in a box to check and opt out of making that contribution. So we can qualify this as a voluntary donation to the State Park Natural Resources Protection Act.
So it's a pretty painless process, really.
Yes.
I mean, you're getting your license or your registration renewed, and if you want to help state parks, you can, and if you don't, you don't have to.
Exactly, precisely.
And so it's choice.
It's a matter of choice, and what we find in our pre-filing polling, we really did our homework here and found out that 504 likely voters, 70% of those folks approve of this measure. And so the matter of getting this measure approved on the ballot is really, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're there.
We bet. The problem is we have only 1 month to get 172,000 signatures.
172,000 signatures statewide. We've got a cadre of volunteers out collecting signatures, including right here in the Verde Valley.
Including Mayor Diane Jones.
Yes, ma'am. She's stepping up again.
Yes, I will be seeking signatures and asking others to carry petitions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So this $14 donation, if we look at the polling, it appears to us that we will be able to secure at least a 60% participation rate and generate $30 to $40 million to fund this grant program, the $10 million grant program administered by state parks, and to fund our state park system to make sure that we have access to our state parks, to get school kids into state parks for free, and to start to address this massive capital needs backlog that we face now.
Well, it's just like a homeowner. If you don't take care of your home, pretty soon it's in shambles, and
it
takes a lot less dollars to take care of it along the way than it does to let it fall into disrepair and start over, essentially, with trying to repair it.
Certainly.
So, okay, there's 31 parks in Arizona, and 5 of those are right here in the Verde Valley and Sedona areas. 5 of them.
I was the one of 4 assistant directors to the state park system for 5 years, and everyone would ask me, "What's your favorite state park?" And every time I would say, "It's the last state park I left." They're all wonderful, but the 5 parks here in the Verde Valley are so unique.
They're beautiful.
So diverse.
Each one, yes,
oh
they
my
are.
Goodness. And we could talk about those.
Historical. I mean,
my goodness.
Yeah, like Fort Verde.
The Fort Verde.
And Fort Verde has really been impacted by this. I mean, it would have been closed except for the town of Camp Verde.
Precisely.
Mayor Bob Cottonwood, Mayor Bob Cottonwood, and Fort Verde is really Mayor Bob in Burnside and the council members, and then Supervisor Chip Davis all pitched in to keep that park open.
Yes.
And
you're kind of referring to the real crisis that occurred. You know, when you watch $81 million of funds that are directed to the state park system be diverted by the legislature for other purposes, there's direct impact. And what we watched in January of 2010, I believe it was, 23 state parks were slated for closure. It was a heartbreak to watch those announcements.
Just awful.
But shortly thereafter, we watched as communities around the state, including Camp Verde, including the county, Yavapai County, with support from Supervisor Chip Davis, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, everybody chimed in. The town of Payson chipped in. I mean, we've watched as friends groups, nonprofit organizations that have formed to support our state parks here in the Verde Valley and others really stepped up to help state parks retain some operating funds, create some operating funds to open parks back up. But still, our parks are operating on shortened schedules. And once you announce that parks are closing and you watch these partial closures occur, the message is really hard to turn around that state parks are open.
Well, I know I had complaints, personal complaints, that people had company from out of state and went to the Douglas Mansion and it was closed. You know, people were disappointed.
Yes, deeply disappointed. You plan your family outings, you plan your weekend.
Around state parks and national parks. And
yes, all these wonderful resources that we've got. And when those suddenly become unavailable, or the schedules so chaotic that you're uncertain.
That you don't know when they're open, so why go?
All I can do is tell you, go visit the website, you know, check the website out, and make sure you know what the schedule is before you go. But if we pass this measure,
well, no.
In November, we won't have to deal with this any longer. We will have a state park system that's open and sustainable, accessible to the Arizona public and the million visitors that come to Arizona from out of state. You know, the 5 parks in the Verde Valley draw tourism.
They do, and you know, I mean, statewide, it's what, $226 million that it brings to the economy? And so, like, not investing in that, I mean, to take money away from that.
It's like robbing the goose that stole, you know, that laid the golden egg.
I don't blame legislators. Everybody was doing what they had to do during tough times. But it's time now for the public to come out, I think, and say, you know, and to tell our legislators and our governor, who, I mean, our legislators were really, they were really supportive of it. So I think that would be preaching to the choir.
Yes, exactly.
But it's time for our public to say, we want our state parks to be funded.
And supporting this measure, signing petitions, supporting the campaign is critical to getting this on the ballot and then voter approving it, and we won't have this issue any longer. We will be able to rely on our natural resources for the economic drivers that they are throughout Arizona. You're right, Diane. $266 million in economic activity is driven by visitors, 2 million visitors to our state parks annually. Now that's 3,000 jobs in rural Arizona alone.
3,000 jobs, that's a lot of jobs.
You know, it boggles my mind when I stood by and watched over the last 8 years, particularly, as these funding sweeps occurred to the state park system, and yet our legislature and our governor and everyone in Arizona was talking about, we've got to create jobs, we've got to retain jobs, particularly over the last 3 years. When you're killing off your state park system, you're killing jobs. And so to fund this measure with 27 cents a week, that's what this $14 works out to, for our state park system and to voter protect Arizona heritage funding to the Game and Fish Department, it retains those jobs. The Heritage Fund alone, the $10 million allocation to state parks and to Game and Fish, the impacts of those grant programs and those protection mechanisms generated $400 million over the last 20 years.
That's amazing.
In economic, in grant programs. Now that's a matching grant program, but almost $1 billion in economic impact. That's the Heritage Fund, and how valuable that became, over the last 20 years, to the state of Arizona. Now, why would we kiss that away?
Yeah.
And then to, you know, again, emphasize that state parks, open and operating, draw campers, fishermen, you know, folks who want to go on a picnic. What do? They stop at the grocery store. They spend money for picnic supplies.
When they're driving through, they stop and get gas.
They spend the night and support our hotels. They support rural economies through this kind of tourism impact.
Exactly.
And so we want to sustain that. We want to retain and maintain those jobs, particularly in rural Arizona. Now, many of our visitors, you know, we get 1 million visitors from in-state, 1 million from out of state and out of the country. We want to retain that level of visitation. But, you know, for neighborhood folks, for folks who just want to go down to the Verde River and have a picnic, you know, when it's
I'm camping this week at Dead Horse.
Oh my gosh, it's hot.
I love to go to Dead Horse and camp. I can actually sort of be away on vacation, and yet I could go do my work like today.
Stay vacations, right?
Staycations.
Staycations, that's what
All
they're
right,
named.
well, we need to take another break. We'll be right back with Inside Cottonwood in just a moment.
Meet the team at Arizona Smile Designers, offering complete comprehensive, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. Dr. Vergara and Dr. Lord specialize in dental health, implants, and cosmetic dental procedures. Expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment bring forth the most from your smile. Dr. Ripplinger conveniently comes to Arizona Smile Designers for oral surgery and complicated procedures. Visit Arizona Smile Designers at 350 South Willard in Cottonwood. Insurance and new patients are welcome. Call 634-8610.
Thousands of fires across the United States are caused by careless people. Hi, I'm Fire Marshal Rick Contreras with the Cottonwood Fire Department. The major threat of human-caused fires are from burning debris that get out of control or improperly extinguished or unattended campfires. Remember that fireworks have no place on our wild lands. Become part of the solution. Learn more about proper fire safety by contacting the local fire department.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. We're going to wrap up our program here in a few minutes, talking with Christy Statler from the Arizona State Parks Foundation. I just want to share, Christy, my own feelings about this, and I'm really just right on this. I would really love to see this petition process succeed. We don't have much time, but also a way that people can help is financial donations. And financial donations are just essential to this campaign because it has to get on the ballot before the voters can vote yes or no as to whether they want to do this. So people can contribute to this on a website. It's aznaturalresources.org.
Yes.
We did mention that website before. There's a little donate button there.
Big donate button.
A big donate button. So if anybody would like to donate to this process, we have lots of just citizens walking around with the petitions, but we also, I guess, are hiring some of them because we have such a short time frame.
Yes.
But we want to be sure that they're all valid signatures, that we get they need to be a registered voter in the state of Arizona.
Correct.
And it can be any party. It's nonpartisan.
Precisely.
So whoever's registered to vote can sign a petition and then vote on this in November.
Yes.
Because I'm going to have a positive attitude like you.
Good, good.
It's so needed. It's just something, I'm so excited that you guys have jumped into the fray and,
this is a labor
that you're
of
working
love.
on this.
Well, the Arizona State Parks Foundation has been noodling either a referral to the ballot or an initiative campaign for some time. The writing was on the wall. The defunding of our park system we've watched, and we've been staunch advocates of our state park system, but typically it's been fighting off these kinds of legislative funding raids and very little to be proactive and positive about. So this is a measure that the foundation took action on and endorsed as an organization, as are many other nonprofit organizations around the state. Not only do we encourage Arizonans to go to the website and contribute and support the campaign, but become a member of the campaign. Identify yourself as a supporter and a member of Citizens to Save Arizona's Natural Resources.
And if you can carry a petition in your neighborhood,
yes.
How can people do that? I mean, I know if they contact me, they all know my name's in the phone book.
Yes.
If they can spell Jones wrong, is my
they
favorite
can get it
joke.
Right. Yes, yes.
You know, but I would always try to get them to that process.
Yes.
But how else can they do that?
We have friends groups all over the state, including the Friends of the Verde River Greenway, a wonderful organization based here in Cottonwood that is supporting the campaign with distribution of petitions. So you can contact the Friends of the Verde River Greenway on their website or give Chip Norton a phone call. I think there's a phone number attached to the website as well. There are contact folks here in the Verde Valley who have petitions. And what we encourage Arizonans to do, particularly here in the Valley, is pick up petitions. Get your neighbors and friends to sign on and then turn in those petitions. They have to be notarized that you collected the signatures.
Right.
But once that's done, then return them back to the Friends of the Verde River Greenway so they can submit them back to the campaign and we can get this thing on the ballot.
Okay. So, and also the Friends of the Verde River Greenway have an office in the Business Assistance Center.
Correct.
Which is located right next door to City Hall.
I visited there not too long ago.
So there's just different ways that you can find people, and call me.
Mayor Jones.
I would be happy to try to find a petition for you if you want to carry one.
Excellent.
So we need to wrap up now. I just want to say thank you, Christy, for all the work that you've done for state parks. I mean, it is a labor of love.
It is a labor of love.
And you're so knowledgeable about state parks.
Well, you know, when you're tooling around to 31 state parks, not only do you enjoy the park and the resource, but you enjoy the park rangers who know so much and have dedicated so much to these parks.
We have awesome ones at Dead Horse.
All over the state, we have incredible resources. People that are, and volunteers and friends.
Oh, volunteers.
Including you, Mayor Jones. Diane, you have been a staunch advocate for our state park system and the Verde Valley parks here. And I'd love to thank you now for the wonderful advocacy you've provided and personal support to all of our campaigns and to our state park and natural resources here in Arizona. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's worth it to me and to the citizens of Cottonwood and Yavapai County and Arizona and the nation.
It is. It is.
These parks are treasures.
They
so thank you very much for being with us today, Christy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is Inside Cottonwood. We'll see you next month.